Hi everyone, and welcome to the Buffett and Beyond Research Saturday ETF report. This is November 8th, 2025, and we're going over the best and the worst of a bad week. And remember, folks, if you want to live on this beach like Jimmy Buffett once did, you've got to learn how to invest even better than Warren Buffett does now. And let us look at the year to date. And these are the ETFs in order, and these main ETFs of the S&P 500. And gold, with the exception of gold, because we put gold in here, gold is leading the pack at 51.69%, followed by the semiconductor. And boy, we're going to look at this in a minute here, because this is the worst of this week so far, and the XLK. Now, this is all as of Friday afternoon. And the XLK technology and the utilities is still hanging in there. And this is the NASDAQ 100, the QQQs that we follow a lot. And then the S&P down here is about 13.65%. And as I'm recording this right now, it's actually about 12 point something percent. So it's a rough day today, a rough couple of days that we've been having. Now, let's go to this week, and let's put it in order of the worst first. And guess what? The worst is the semiconductor, which has been the best over the year. Next worst is technology, and then you have the QQQs, the NASDAQ 100. Now, notice that the XSD is down, well, 2.5 times that of the NASDAQ 100 itself, and down, about almost 4 times that of the S&P 500. So the point I'm bringing out is that the semiconductor and the technologies are more volatile than the market itself, and since those stocks have been up the most, those are the ones that they'll sell off first to try to take some profits or maintain or keep their profits for the year. And that takes us into the next slide. And before we get into the next slide, I just want to come down here, and we can see that the best performing is oil, and the next best performing was energy, or is energy. And then healthcare actually turned in a positive week. That's nice for a change. Finally getting some traction out of the XLV. But of course, what's happening is the money's coming out of the high flyers and going into these ETFs down here that have not performed that well. So let's go and see what happens as we look at our top 5 stocks. So we look at the top 5 stocks that we have, that we picked out of the semiconductors, and they are down an average of 10.5%. So they fell just a tad more than the ETF did itself. Let's go back. The ETF is down 9%, the semiconductor ETF, and our best stocks out of that group are down 10.5%, so barely more than the index itself. And of course, we have Rambus Monolithic Power Systems. NVIDIA is down almost 11% today. Advanced Micro Devices, that was doing so well because NVIDIA is going to buy chips from them. And then Credo Technology down the most at 20%. So the average is down 10.5% of our top 5 stocks. Now, let us look at our top 5 stocks and what they have done year to date, which includes the down day today. So we have Credo Technology, the one that was the worst, is up the most for the year, which includes today. And when we look at Rambus, up 93%, AMD up 88%, Monolithic up 54%, NVIDIA up a mere 34%. But don't forget, NVIDIA almost doubled last year. And so we want to look at this portfolio is up, including the down day today, up 78.4% for the year versus the XSD, the ETF itself. Remember, these are the top 5 stocks that we picked out of the XSD, the semiconductor ETF. These are the top 5 stocks that we picked. So up again, 78% versus 29% for the ETF itself versus 12.5% for the S&P 500. That's a big difference. This is year to date, folks. So we want to look at not how much or how bad these stocks perform today, but how are they performing on the year as a whole. They're just knocking dead the ETF itself and totally obliterating the S&P 500. So these semiconductor stocks are still doing very, very well. Folks, kind of wish we had all our money in these 5 stocks, right? But we don't. We have other portfolios and other stocks. Now, I want to show you what we have done over the past 6.9 years. The end of November and the end of December will be 7 years that we've been coming up with the top 5 or 6 stocks or even 7 stocks during the year of the XSD. So these are portfolios that we started way back, and we can see the S&P 500 up 164%. Folks, that's not bad for 7 years. That's an average of about 23% per year. So that's very, very good. And that includes 2022, which the S&P was down 19.5%. So if you're up 23% a year, count your lucky stars. So we're having a really, really good run. And remember what we wrote about in this week's newsletter, because we talked about 20, 30 years ago, we were making T-shirts and selling in a supermarket. You hope to make a few cents per can of food, 5 cents on a T-shirt if you could. But now, what are we producing in this country? And I'm talking about the U.S. because we do have a lot of international folks buying this newsletter. We're making semiconductors, and what are the markups on semiconductors? Well, they bring 60% of the cost of the semiconductor to the bottom line. So we're talking about serious markups. What about those generators that GE is now selling for $25 million a piece? Yeah, you're making you're making millions of dollars out of each one of those that you sell. So we're buying, or we're producing now, higher markups, and that's why we're getting such a good stock market. Everybody says it's overbought, it's crazy, and it has been a little bit crazy this past year on the semiconductors and the tech stocks. But the point is, when you look at all the years and we see what we've been making over all the years in the S&P 500, well, then you're saying, why are we doing so well? Because we are making products that the world will pay more, and we will pay more for, which has a higher markup. We're making highly tuned technical products, and those $25 million gas generators are making plenty of money, and AI is just starting out. So yeah, we can expect nice money in the S&P 500. But what if we bought the technical stocks? Well, the technical stocks are up 2.5 times that of the S&P 500. So we're looking at the semiconductor stocks. And I mentioned technical stocks. A lot of the semiconductor stocks are in the technical ETF also, and they're up 393% over the past 6.9 years, so call it 7 years. Had you invested in our 5 or 6 or 7 top stocks, you'd be up 1,065%. Wow, folks, that's a big, big difference from 164%, isn't it? So even if you would invest in the S&P 500, you want to put a couple of these real tech stocks and semiconductor stocks in your portfolio, because you can make a lot of money going over that. And again, we're up 78% in our top 5 stocks, and we have several of them in our growth portfolio. So that's why our growth portfolio is doing well again this year. So Buffett and Beyond Research, 6.9 years. Yeah, we've made a lot of money, folks. So here we are. We're having a terrible week, but when you look at the year overall, we're doing fantastic. I mean, super fantastic. So let's keep it up. Let's keep buying the good stocks. And we just had a meeting the other day with one of the folks who are investing in the Buffett and Beyond strategy, and we were talking to him about, because he bought a lot of ETFs. And I said, well, what if you just bought the top stocks in those ETFs instead of the bottom part? So you can do away with the bottom part. You have to buy the individual stocks, but all you have to do is follow us, and you're going to outperform that ETF just about every single time. And he totally liked the idea, because he is following the newsletter now and actually looking at these results. So folks, other than having a really tough week this week, you go out this weekend, you take your mind off the market, because overall for the year we are doing fantastic. For the past 7 years, we're doing fantastic. For the past 22 years, we're doing 2.5 times that of the S&P 500 in a portfolio that usually exhibits no more risk than the S&P 500. So that's what you want to look at. So take your mind off the market, be with your family this weekend, have Sunday dinner with them, and folks, guess what? You stay safe, and we'll see you right back here in a couple of days.